Good morning, one and all. We are in a gloomy Gettysburg today. Fog is thick as pea soup. Clouds are, well, you can't tell the difference between the clouds and the fog. It's all the same. From high up on the mountain to down on the valley floor, Gettysburg is covered in a blanket of fog. So I thought we'd take you around the battlefield and the surrounding areas to see Gettysburg and the drones. Not here in Gettysburg, of course, but up in New Jersey, Virginia, even in the UK and Argentina. Very fascinating stuff. All near military installations of one ilk or another. So I imagine it's the military. But I have family back in Jersey, so I'm, hearing the boots on the ground updates and watching the news. And I find it very fascinating how people don't assume it's just the military, our military. Hey, Ms. Lisi, how you doing? The test. Oh, well, tonight we will be recording a test autopsy. It's more of a debrief with Mike Lentz, Debbie Jones, and Jamie Umstad. We will be talking about our experience taking the test. I will tell you this. I liken it to I don't know if this is actually true or not, but I was taught this in school. So if I never went and looked up the veracity of this story, it's because I assumed my teachers knew what they were talking about. So if this is incorrect, forgive me, but it gets the essence of what I'm trying to say across. I believe I heard somewhere that during Jim Crow, the southern states weren't too pleased with having to give African Americans the right to vote. And so they said, well, fine, but you have to take a test. And then they made the test in Chinese or some other language. That's kind of, but I went into it with a different mindset than everybody else. To me, it was a fact-finding mission because, no matter who you ask, no matter how much you ask, you really can't get a good idea of what to prepare. The answer is really everything. And so, like we tried to do those episodes where guides were giving advice, and I told them, and they some of them said this first, but the instructions either way were give people advice on how to get in the right mindset to take the exam, not what to study. Some stuck with that, some mostly stuck with that, and then, threw in some things that they thought you should study. But really, it covered everything. And I wanted to see how the whole process was. So I wasn't going thinking that I was going to get a license. Some people during lunch, when we were all waiting to get back in the building, we're all standing around talking, and I felt good for myself because a lot of people who I knew prepared very, very hard for years felt ambushed and devastated and had the same problems, or the same issues maybe, with the same questions I did. In other words, they didn't know the answers either, or they had a good guess, but whatever. So that made me feel good. And it also kind of just told me, it's like, well, I didn't study for it. They did. And they're just as bewildered as I am. So I don't know what that's a commentary on. Maybe we're all morons. But I feel bad for people who, I see what people say on Facebook or whatever. And what's that old saying about the wisest hen of them all is the one who clucks after her egg is hatched or something like that? Or after she laid the egg? I forget exactly how it goes. But basically, people counting their chickens before they hatch, acting as if A, they deserve the license, and B, it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to get it. And then the next day, in the exam, seeing the complete devastation in their comments or in their posts on Facebook actually made me feel bad for them. And I'm glad that it did, because that means I'm a normal human being, because they put so much into it and they put so much hope in getting this license. And it doesn't mean that they're not getting it. I mean, we don't know the results. That's the other thing. We got to wait a month for the results. I'm absolutely certain my result is sorry, better luck next time. I'm absolutely sorry. I left a page and a half blank. And then, there were other answers I left blank, or, it's funny when you're sitting there taking the test, every general's name is James or John in your head, but it's not in real life. Luckily, 5 or 6 questions later, they give the general's full name in the question, and then you go, yeah, that's it, and you go back and change it. But not always, so you can't bank on that. But anyway, I had fun. It was fun. I met a lot of listeners, and that was nice. I was interviewed by CBS News. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but a lot of people were interviewed by CBS News. And, it was an experience. I feel like next time I will have a better idea of what to prepare. Although it might be totally different next time. So, and honestly, if I got a license, I would probably, that's East Cemetery Hill that we could barely see in front of us in the fog there, in case you're wondering where we are. I really would just use it to ride horses, like to do horse tours, because there's so many horses around here, but there's nowhere for me to go and rent a horse for an hour like I used to do and go ride on the trails. It's so frustrating. So I'm like, God, the only way I'll be able to ride a horse on a regular basis is if I get a license and I offer myself to the horse tours. I would do it for free now. All right. Hello, James Thompson, freeloader. Nice to see you. I like the freeloaders who embrace it, like they identify themselves as such, and they know that I'm just teasing, even though nobody's getting Christmas presents this month. It's fun that we can have fun with that. Have I been naughty or nice? Well, I think I've been mostly nice, just because I've been too tired to be naughty. Even when the battlefield is foggy, it makes for great photos. Yes, it does. What did you think was the weirdest question? Asks Chris. Well, the one that sticks out is name the legislation that made it illegal to relic hunt. Oh, I have a green light. Thanks for telling me. There were a bunch of questions like that, not just about legislation, but that were, I guess, that would indicate that you're a well-rounded person as far as what you know, that you have a vast and firm grasp on the Civil War, because that's really what the test was. It was a Civil War test. but the thing was, I'm like, well, am I being tested to teach the Civil War at a college, or am I being tested to give a tour about a battlefield to people who think George Washington fought here? And that's kind of what I was like, whatever, but again, I wasn't expecting to pass. I was going to see what it is like. There's people who banked a lot on this, and they seemed a little dumbfounded that we were joking that it was a third about the battle and 2/3 about everything else, but I'm pretty certain that if you actually went and looked at it, it was broken down evenly. But when you don't know about most of the non-battle stuff, then it could seem like it's 2/3 non-battle. But yeah, I think that, to me, that was the weirdest question. There were a couple of them like that asked for the name of the legislation, not just what year did Congress do this. It was, what was the name of the legislation? And I asked a few guides, currently licensed guides, afterwards if they know the answer, and part of my French, but almost to a man, they said, "Who the fuck knows that?" So, yeah, so that's that's kind of what it was like. But I had a good time. I actually did have a good time. And what was funny was, and we'll talk about this on the show later, is beforehand, we're all assembling and kind of getting there. Everybody's, people that we all knew, all of us who knew each other kind of were clicked together and stuff. But then people started coming up to me and introducing themselves and thanking me for doing the shows that we did that were around the guide exam. And I said, "You're welcome." And then there were like, there was a question we had. I don't remember the question, but there was a question we had, and I said, oh, we did a show about that this year. And I couldn't for the life of me remember the answer. And I said, well, I'll come back to that. This happened 3 more times, and by the 4th time when that happened, I started to laugh. And I don't know if the guy sitting next to me heard it, because I was kind of stifling it, but I was like laughing to myself like a maniac, because it dawned on me that these people that came up and thanked me for doing these shows that helped them study will probably do better than I did, and I did the fucking show. Because, and this is what I was saying to CBS, and they understood it because they do shows. So when we were talking, I said, I do this podcast about the battle, and I started doing it to study for the guide exam. But what I didn't anticipate was it would take off, and then it became less about actual learning and more about producing shows. So, like, I don't have time to learn. Let's just look at this. So we're on Reynolds Avenue. Hers Woods is right there, but you can't see it. Sorry, not Hers Woods, forgive me. McPherson's Woods. See, I failed the exam again. It's right there, you can't see. So this is a thick fog, and usually, fog, yeah, we get our foggy days where it's foggy all day long, but usually it's gone by the time the sun is up in the air, even in the winter. But today it is sticking around, and I kind of like it. I think it's cool. Now we see McPherson's Woods emerging from the foggy mist. Very exciting, very exciting. John B says, glad you took the test, no regrets. Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad I took it too. I mean, look, you can't, there was probably a 5% chance that I would have passed it and moved on. So, I mean, but I never would have known that if I didn't take it, So, yeah, I mean, you don't know until you try. So you gotta get in there. And for me, I'm the type of person that can't see. Here's the problem. The way they tell you to prepare for the exam is so cryptic and vague and it's like, here's a reading list, and it's like 700 books long, but they don't tell you exactly what they want you to focus on. Like, when you take a class for something, when you go to school, they prepare you, and then they give you an exam to see your knowledge, and you either make it or you don't. Here, it's like you're on your own, which is fine, but I can teach myself something on my own, and I will only focus on what I'm interested in if I'm not given a curriculum. And so, we'll go straight. Let's see. And so, when I just kind of dangle in the wind like that last leaf on a tree in autumn, uh, I kind of just, I gravitate towards what I want to know. And so I knew, and then that, between that and the time that I need for producing the show and everything, I knew that I was be properly prepared for this. Like, for example, that study group that Six Questions and Debbie have. I'm part of the Facebook group that they were talking in, the message, because I was supposed to be part of the group. I just never had the time, and especially when you start moving and everything. So, and then I had two other friends, and we were doing a Zoom call on Monday nights, and that lasted about a month, and then we moved, and I never had the time again to do it. So I went into it well that I was going to do badly, and I did not disappoint myself at all. I didn't have hope. I didn't give myself any false hope that maybe I'll miraculously get this all right enough. So I went in there because I needed to know what it was like so that I can prepare myself next time. So but I'm glad I took it. And we'll talk more about the experience tonight on the show. I don't know if I'm going to do it as a live stream or just record it and then put it up tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. But Jason Martz is coming on tonight at 5 o'clock to do a live stream. We'll be talking about the guide exam. We'll be talking about winter lectures coming up and other things. The only chicken I take advice from is Foghorn Leghorn. Exactly. I don't know what the hell that means. Went up the observation tower. She's a hike. Yeah, it is a hike. Ghost says, Matt, you have a license to ill. That's true. That's very true. 7th West Virginia. Yeah, there was a question. I thought it was a trick question, but I went the wrong way on the trick with the answer about West Virginia. Matt Calorie, have horse will travel. Damn right. Tom Canavan. New Visitor Center on Cemetery Hill looks imposing. Don't know if I like it yet. We'll wait on judgment to see it in person. Oh, you're talking, that's not a visitor center. That's the bus tour depot. I it's not as bad as I thought. When I heard it was going to be 2 acres, I was like, or two stories, I was like, oh no, now we're not going to be able to see anything. But there's a little sliver that you can see. If you go up on Cemetery Hill, you can look out towards the Peace Light, towards where we are right now, and see the sunset and everything. So, it's not bad. Did you think the test was a little too much for what it is? That's a great question, Peter. Here's my thought on that. Because somebody was saying to me, why don't you just go and get your license down at Antietam or Harper's Ferry? Harper's Ferry gives a test 4 times a year. Antietam, if you don't do well, but they see that you're serious about it, they'll work with you with a mentor, and then they'll let you take it again. It's easier everywhere else. Again, I'm not looking to be a guide per se. I would take it if I made it, but I'm not, this isn't my dream. I'm kind of living my dream now. So, that would just be gravy. It would honestly, it would enable me to ride a horse often. That's really what it is. However, I will say this about that. Gettysburg is sought after. People want to be guides. People came. We had people at the party who came from California and Washington State to take the exam. Another friend and listener came from Georgia. There was another who was supposed to come from Tennessee, but I didn't see him, so I don't think he made it. So there were people that came from all over to take this. There are people that moved here to take it. So it's a dream for them. It's a status symbol almost, I think, for a lot of people. It's a position I admire. I admire the guides here that I know because I know what it takes to become one because I've hung out with them for so long. And I know that I'm not really that guy. You know what I mean? So anyway, but that's not your question. I don't actually think it was too much for what it is. And here's why. And this would be the Parks reasoning, and I think I agree with it, but I do have a little caveat. And we'll find out tonight if this actually is the Parks reasoning. Okay. If people visit a Civil War site, it is most likely going to be once in their life, and it is most likely going to be Gettysburg. This started back when they built the new visitor center. And the galleries start basically at, creation and work their way all the way up to after the Civil War into the 20th century. And people at first were like, why are you doing that? It's just another thing to make people feel guilty about slavery and blah, blah, blah. No, it's because this is going to be the place where most Americans visit if they visit a Civil War site at all. So you've got to hit them with the hind. You got to get everything in there. And put Gettysburg in context of the war, but also put the war in context of American history. And then that is not an easy task, by the way. That's a lot to throw on somebody for a day visit to Gettysburg. So it seems to me that they want the future guides to be almost not necessarily ambassadors to Gettysburg, or those, or what do you call them, like liaisons between, the history of the battle and our Civil War and the modern American public. But I think they want them to be like a mini Civil War professor, and they want them to have a really firm grasp on the war and how Gettysburg fits into it. Now, part of me is like, well, okay, but I'm on a 2-hour tour, and we're driving around a battlefield. People are not deep. People are going to want to know about what's right in front of them. So you're never going to talk about the Trent affair or just you're not going to talk about these. And no one is ever going to ask you, say, I brought my metal detector. After this tour, do you think I can pull it out and go do some metal detecting? And then the guide says, well, no, relic hunting is illegal. And then the person says, that's interesting. What's the name of the legislation that made it illegal? That's just never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. Unless you get some congressional staffer who's like a Congress nerd, a legislation nerd on the board. So, okay. So I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with it. Now, I didn't prepare. So I'm taking this test cold, relying on whatever I might have learned through osmosis over almost 30 years. Ugh. So there's that. I do hear grumblings from other people saying that it was too much about everything else and not enough. I think the only question vaguely related to the wheat field was, it might have been, where did the Irish Brigade fight? So that's Stony Hill, but they had to go through the wheat field. And then there might have been one more. But yeah, it just seemed like there was a dearth of battle questions. And there were a lot of battle questions. So I suppose that if you studied very hard and you read everything you could about the battle and a few things about the war and the lead up to the war and the Reconstruction era, but you felt more confident on the battle, then you'd probably be disappointed. On the other hand, I have a friend who took it and he said, I felt more comfortable or more confident on all the questions that were not about the battle, which I thought was interesting. So it just really, I guess, depends on what you're coming there with. But so anyway, I think the Gettysburg test has to be a little bit more impossible because everybody wants to get a license. Whereas other places like Harper's Ferry and Antietam need people to want to have a license, so they make it a little easier. It's not that it's the procedural stuff. We'll tell you when we're giving the test. That whole thing, that doesn't seem to be an issue at those other places. So yeah, I think. I get it. I get why they do it. Now, on the other hand, government, as we all know, is always 10 to 20 years behind the population. And I think I experienced that firsthand recently with the whole film permit stuff. Those film permits were written before there were cell phones. And certainly the capability for everybody to have a camera in their pocket. So, and so the park here is trying to make 2024 fit into 1984 or whenever. I don't know when they passed that legislation. Ironically, that wasn't a question on the test. So everybody's behind. So I think, and this was another thing that a lot of people seem to agree on, is that they're forgetting the audience. And I had a conversation, I won't say who, but with a prominent professor in our field, and he or she said, it seems that they don't realize how stupid the American people have become. And I said, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, they're not looking for a deep understanding of the Civil War on the whole. You guys are. You seek it out. But the people that are visiting here because it's like, oh, well, we're visiting Washington, D.C., and we found, oh, it's only an hour and a half away. Well, might as well go to Gettysburg for the day. And they come up just to see it because they might as well. Those people, they just want to tour the battlefield. They want to hear about the battle. And, they say don't give more than 6 names on a tour. Well, if you don't want to give more than 6 names on a tour, then why are we even bothering with stuff that has nothing to do with the battle directly? And I get the park's answer to that, but I also get that the people are dumber. It's just the way it is. We all know it. We all see it. And most likely, people my age in their early 20s, people my age who are in their 40s to get the license, we're going to be the ones giving the tours to people who are now in their teens and 20s and 30s when they come up with their families. And, as we get to the lower ages in those groups there, we're getting dumber. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if by the time the kids who are in high school today are adults with families, that will have to have coloring books for the whole family when we give tours. And that means for the adults too. How many questions was on the test, James says? 100 something. I forgot to look at the last number, but over 120. I don't know. I'll ask Jason that tonight. I didn't pay attention. Melissa says, have you heard how 6 questions did on the test? I just got here and you're talking about the test. We are doing a show with him tonight. We will ask him how he thinks he did. I did ask him how he thinks he did. And Debbie Jones is also going to be on the show, and Jamie Umstad, of course, from the Wall Street Journal. from Wall Street Journal fame, of Wall Street Journal fame. They will be on. We're going to do that show tonight and talk about that. I can tell you that everybody seemed shell-shocked at lunch. Everybody was walking around with a dazed look on their face, a dazed look on their face. So, yeah. Beauregard says, I don't like tests. I don't really like tests either. You know, yeah, I never was good at well, I wasn't bad either, but like I never was a sit down and take a written test kind of guy, because I'm a speaker, I'm not a writer, and so I remember even in school, like I was having flashbacks to school. I'm sorry if I'm chomping on my gum here. Let me throw it out. I remember when I had flashbacks. I was having flashbacks to school, and even in school, and this is why I think I just slipped through the cracks with my ADD. Like, if the test was more than 10 questions long, like if you can't test me in 10 questions, then I'm over it. And so then it's like I'm daydreaming, I'm playing drums on the desk with my pencil erasers. I wasn't doing that here, but I was thinking about other things and making myself laugh. So I wonder whether the power lines along East Cemetery Hill will ever be placed underground like the ones along Gettysburg Road. I guess that's not high priority this time. Well, David, the lines along the Emmitsburg Road were placed under there with money, I believe, given to the park by Ted Turner to do that, if I'm not mistaken. Something related to that. I think it was like, let us film some stuff on the battlefield itself, and I'll give you this money, and you can put these cables underground. So unless there's another Ted Turner-like figure who comes along and gives them the money for that, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Or at least that's the story I've been told. Brandon, why did I think Mike Lentz was already a guide? Somebody came up to me at the test, and he said, like your show, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I have to tell you, I already thought you were a guide. And I go, what? And he's like, well, yeah, like I didn't realize it. And then I was listening to a show that you did the other day. And it was the show about Confederate wounds. And you had mentioned something about when I take the test and that you weren't a guide. And I was surprised that you weren't already a guide. And I go, well, if I were a guide, I probably would have done the show myself, like without bringing guides on. So, but thanks. But no, Mike's not, and I'm not either. The reason you probably thought that, Brandon, is because Mike knows a shit ton about the battle, and we show him off on the show as often as we can. But no, he is not yet a guide. I think he'll do fine on the test. I think, any reservations he had, it was just because of the surprise of the questions that most of us weren't expecting. But I think Mike will have done well on everything else. That's my guess. These are all guesses. Lentz has a guide license yes, that's right, Ghost. He is he's certified. It's not a license. He's a certified guide down in Culpeper, Virginia. So he gives tours of Brandy Station. I don't know why I keep coming down this way, because I always lose my signal. I'm not going to Little Round Top because of it. Ty says, that's why I wouldn't pass. I only like learning about the Union side of things. Yeah, you got to learn the whole story. And then some, apparently. So, yeah, if your bias is so strong that you can't learn the whole story, you must money. Because this is the longest excuse in the history of excuses. No, I think there's a pretty good record of me saying all along that I don't expect to pass, I don't have time to study, and I just want to see what it's like. So I feel... Mike Rupert indicated it took him 10 years. He's great. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are very respected guides today who had to take the test 2 or 3 the written, but they failed the oral twice. So, like, you know, it's a hard process. And that's why I shook my head when I would see these people making posts on Facebook, when I'm a guide. And I've wanted this my whole life. And then their friends are commenting, you deserve it. And I'll be your first tourist. And, like, okay. But I also think, I've been, let's see, 2005 is when I opened Gettysburg. And I used to go on all the tours. And I would talk to the guides. I became friends with them, and I got to know them, and they would tell me their stories and stuff and how hard it is. And some of them passed the first time, some of them didn't. And, it varies from person to person, of course. So I knew the mountain that we have to climb. So I wasn't really, and I know myself, like, that's the thing, is I know myself. I can buckle down and study, but not indefinitely thinking, okay, we're going to give the test this year. And then it's like, oh no, we're going to do it next year. And then it's like, well, we don't know when we're going to do it. And then it's like, well, I'm not going to I can't keep studying, because then eventually my brain gets smooth and I don't retain anything. Ghost of Sickles Leg says, love this. Been weeks since I've been in Gettysburg and missing it. Cleaning my gutters for the last of the fall leaves and finished my Xmas lights. Beauregard says, why such high standards for Gettysburg? Why low standards for our modern political system? That's a great question. Well, isn't that kind of the way it's always been? The people that get in with low standards demand high standards of everyone else? Or people who get in because of low standards demand high standards for everybody else. Go to Bed says, yo, go to bed. Ty Webb says, I heard about the Trent Affair question and thought it was funny that Threads from the National Tapestry put out a video on that today, the Trent Affair. Oh, nice. I almost feel like the test has become harder. Could be. I never took it before. From what I've been told about from people who've taken it, yeah, it has become harder. It has become broader, from what I understand. I mean, it used to be that maybe there were like 3 questions on anything other than the battle, and then it was all battle. You had to really demonstrate that you had an understanding of the battle, which is, of course, why people come to the battlefield. Garrick says, hi, Matt, watching from my personal headquarters at home in Hanover. We had a great time at the Christmas party on Saturday. Oh, yes, that's another thing. Christmas party. We had 117 people come. That's by far the biggest Christmas party we've had so far. And thank you all for coming out. It was nice to see everybody. It was funny. That morning was the day of the test, and I went on Little Round Top to rub O'Rourke's nose. And there was one other person up there, and he was looking at one of the new waysides that they put up right by the pathway. And as I was walking past him, he peeks his head around the wayside, and he goes, are you Matt? And I said, yeah. And he introduced himself. Oh, I love your show, blah, blah, blah. And so we just get to talking, and I said, are you here to take the guide exam? He goes, no, my wife and I are here, etc. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, you coming to the Christmas party tonight? And he's like, no, I didn't know about it. And I go, well, we're having one. It's at the Barn Resort. I'm sure you got nothing else to do, so why don't you come out and meet other nerds like yourself? And he and his wife came, and they were very nice. We had a lot of fun with them, and they seem to have made some friends. And I love that. That stuff makes me happy. So I'm glad that they came out. And he had his first name was cool. Bates. All right, let's see. Oh, I started at Culp's Hill, didn't I? Well, let's go this way then. So, for any of you first lieutenants out there who watched the recording session yesterday with Stu Dempsey, or I guess, yeah, I made it free for everybody since we didn't get any questions submitted ahead of time. So if you watched that show with Stu yesterday, we were talking about Orland Smith's brigade fighting out on what he calls Smith's Ridge. And I have to say, when I saw it initially put on the calendar a couple months ago, I was like, what the hell is Smith's Ridge? And I didn't want to sound stupid, so I'm like, well, it's just not coming to me. But, you know, and I'm thinking all the ridges that I know. And then finally, I asked Dave, who does my scheduling, I said, Dave, I see that we're talking about Smith's Ridge here. I'm going to put out a call for questions, but I don't know what the hell to tell people because I don't think anybody's going to know what Smith's Ridge is. And he goes, oh, it's about Orland Smith's brigade. And I go, oh, Colt Park. Okay. So we are now approaching the crest of Smith's Ridge here. And he puts it at Highland and Fairview. So this is Highland Avenue here. So we'll turn on Highland Avenue. And, you know, obviously this neighborhood wasn't here during the battle. Rhodes's division would be to the left of us down in Long Lane, and Orland Smith's brigade would be on Cemetery Hill, which is to the right of us. And his skirmish line is going to be out here, and Rhodes skirmishers are going to be out here, and they're going to be having some fun. So this is Highland Ave, and then it crests over here too at Fairview. And I think there was a fence up here. You know, this was all farmland. So this is Fairview. The cross street is Fairview. We're on what am I on? Queen Street. And then Rhodes' division would have been down in Long Lane, which is down at the bottom of the hill here. And most of Long Lane, from what I understand, goes along its original path until you get to the left. And well, I'll show you. So if you go to the right, that takes you into town, over by Redding's Hardware, if you know where that is. And Long Lane originally continues into the woods like that. And behind this line of houses, you can see what's left of the bed of Long Lane. But when they built the neighborhood, I guess they had to veer off this way. So it's named Long Lane, but it's not now at this part the historic roadbed. So anyway, that's what he was talking about. And when you listen to the show, when it comes out for real, I'm going to edit some visuals in. I had my computer open and recording with Google Earth so that you can see where he's talking about as it looks today. So that when you come to town and if you listen to that show and you want to go out in this neighborhood and scare people, you can see what we're talking about. But it's very interesting, though. I love talking about stuff that doesn't get talked about a lot. And one listener, forgive me, I forget who it was, but he called in. Oh, I think his name was Dan. He called in and he made a good point. He goes, you know, we always talk about Culp's Hill has the longest, the most amount of hours fought over it. But these guys out here on the skirmish line were fighting longer, from sunup to sundown and probably a little bit after. So that was a good point. See, that's why I like opening the show. Oh, by the way, speaking of opening the show, what we're going to do, okay, starting in May, is Ask a Guides are going to be live YouTube shows every other Tuesday. And we are going to do them on YouTube for free. So it's not for patrons only. I cleared it with the patrons. I said, you know, I got to get YouTube going up again because they wiped us out with their algorithm bullshit. And I'm thinking of doing the Ask a Guides as a live stream for free on YouTube. Would you guys be pissed? Because, you know, I let them watch the recording session, so that's why I asked. And they said, you know, overwhelmingly, no, do what you got to do. It's your business, which I totally appreciate. So that's what we're going to do. So that means that we're going to open the phone lines so that you can call in and ask the guides directly. We're still going to take pre-submitted questions in case nobody in the audience has a question to call in with. We got to prime the pump with something. If you're a person who doesn't like to call in or can't because you're at work or something, unfortunately, I'm going to have to insist that you put your question in the comment section as a super chat. And the reason for that is because super chats are noticeable for me. So if it's a sea of comments and most of it is just people having a conversation amongst themselves, I'm not going to be able to go through them and find a legitimate question. So a super chat, now for those of you who don't know, like a super chat you got to pay for, but you can pay like $5. And a couple people did it yesterday, and that seemed to be a good system because I noticed them. They put them in a different spot so that like they're up at the top of the comments, so I could see them there. So that's good. And that and phone calls and submitted questions by our patrons are going to be the way we do the Ask a Guides on the live streams. And I hope that what that's going to do is create more engagement between you and the guide directly. So you call in, you ask the guide a question, and if his answer doesn't clear it up for you, ask him a follow-up. And we'll at first at least, we won't rush you through because I don't anticipate a lot of callers. But if it catches on and people end up calling in droves, then I might have to rush you along. But in the meantime, this would be a good way for you to actually talk to these people, and I think it'll make for better content for everybody because now we're getting what you guys want to know more with more intention, I guess. Like that's not what I'm trying to say, but with more interaction, I guess. And so that's that. The audio version of it is still going to go up. So if you're a person who doesn't watch YouTube, obviously you're not even watching this, so whatever. But if you don't watch YouTube and you don't have an account and you can't make it for the live stream or whatever, first of all, you'll be able to watch it archived. But I'll put the audio version of that show up the next day or sometime that week on all of the other podcast platforms. So that's not going away anytime soon. What is going away is AG Today. It's not going away. It's going into hiding. It's going to be for patrons only starting in March. We're going to do January and February still. And like I said, once a month in January and February. And then March comes and it's going to be for the patrons only. Here's why. I think it actually hurts more than it helps get more viewers. Because people can't mix humor with history, and they don't understand, people who are new to it don't understand the whole thinking behind it. The thinking behind it was, we'll catch you with the history shows, and once you're, in that audience, after a couple of years, we're going to start doing AG Today, which we did. And the purpose of AG Today was, now that we have this audience that's interested in the history and many people were inspired to come and visit here either for the first time ever or the first time in a long time because the show kind of reignited their interest in it. Then you got to know where to eat, you got to know where to sleep, and also you need to, if you're part of the Addressing Gettysburg community, meaning that you come to our live shows, in-person shows, you come to the Get Out of the Car tours, you've made friends with people, and you're part of the larger effort here. We figure that's probably a better place to catch up with everything that's going on than if I took 15 minutes out of the first part of every history episode we do. And that also would make sense because every history episode we do comes out months after it's done. So whatever news was relevant at that time is not going to be relevant when it finally comes out. So that's the whole thinking behind AG Today. But when you're new to the channel and you see it after, and maybe you caught a history show first, or maybe you didn't, either way, and you're new to the channel and you see us just talking about whatever, you're like, what the hell does this have to do with Gettysburg? What does this have to do with history? And so then you don't even bother watching the other stuff because you just write off Addressing Gettysburg as a whole. So the other thing is that most of the people who are the regular viewers of AG Today seem to be patrons, or at least the most active commenters seem to be patrons. They're the ones who get it. They're the ones who like it. So I'm going to bring it over to them, and we'll do it there, and they can enjoy it every week, just like everybody else, or just like they did on YouTube. Now you may be saying, well, I'm not a patron. And that's not fair. I like AG Today. I'm not one of these assholes that you're talking about. And okay, all right. You can join Patreon and follow us for free, and it will be available for free on Patreon. So it's to all paying members and for free. So if you're a freeloader on Patreon, that's one of the things that you will get every week for free. But it doesn't seem to be helping. It was helping view-wise until June, and then when YouTube cut everybody down at the knees and all of our views went away, I basically had to rebuild after a year of building, and it's it's not getting back to where it was in May as quickly as I would like. So I'd rather just give it to the people who really enjoy it. But if you're also one of those people saying, oh, I'm not a patron, that's not fair, maybe you should be a patron. Okay, so those are the big things you can look forward to in 2025. I have a meeting tomorrow about the lectures. I still believe that I'll be doing them. Where they'll live seems to be in question, but yeah. All right, let me see here. We had a great time at Christmas party on Saturday. It's funny, Matt. I'm like you, master electrician, rest of am I? As a known ball buster, I took refresher course 12 weeks ago, avoided all the study groups, went and took the test and passed. Good for you. I didn't pass, but good for you anyway. All my buddies that took it with me were pissed because they poured their heart and soul, and a dumbass went in to see how I do. And I passed, and some guys didn't. I'm a good test taker. Well, that's the thing. You know, tests are actually their own thing here, right? Peter says, keep it simple, stupid was taken to a new level. Brandon says, do you feel PTSD'd after this process? I do not, but there are people that look like they are, and that's why I feel bad for them. Was the test a scan? No, it wasn't a Scantron. It was all fill in the blanks and then 3 essay questions. No, they are dated. They're pre-Scantron. James Thompson, you might not know all the questions on the test, but nobody knows their way around better than you. Oh, well, that's nice of you to say. I don't know how true that is, but thank you for saying it anyway. Jim says, the thing is, some people can have a fantastic knowledge and paper test well, but can't tell the story to people. And that's the problem. That's not the problem, but that's the shame of it, is that, like, people who are better speakers, it's funny. I put it like this. I'm always surprised at what information pops in my head when it comes out naturally in a conversation. When I am asked a question on a cold piece of paper, no, it doesn't happen that way. I'm a very verbal, meaning oral, communicator. I don't, not that I can't. It's just that my preferred way of communicating is by speaking and listening. I think Mike said there are 185 questions on the test. Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure. Can you just ease out into the intersection, please? Jesus. Okay. Thanks for taking your time, kids. I'm sure you're hungover. Barbara says, wow, I'm late today. Oh, yes. Hello, Barbara. How are you? Could the existing guides take it and pass? Well, that's funny. A few said, I don't think I'd be able to pass if I had questions like the ones you're talking about. And that's as a current guide. Others, yes. And I think, I don't know. I'd like to know who wrote the test, to be honest with you. And find out, like, what are you trying to prove? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing to these poor people? Chris says, as a geologist, curious to know if they added questions about local. No, there was nothing about geology. There was very little about ridges and hills and roads. Yeah, again, in my mind, it seemed like the least amount of questions pertained to the battle. But that's in my mind. And that's probably because I was weak on all those other things, so it's magnified in my brain. Was Camta Claus at the party? No, Camta Claus I told to go F himself. Anon says, Quasimodo predicted what was going to happen at Smith's Ridge. Did he? Quasimodo or Nostradamus? Beauregard, I spent my 66th birthday solo last April in Gettysburg for a week, highlighted my 2024. Michael Walker says there's a number for George Nixon's wounding on Fairview Avenue. Oh, marker, sorry. One on the homeowners put in front. Oh, that's cool. And why not make a few bucks while live streaming? Seriously, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, Ty, that's part of the reason too. Is I actually so here's the thing, and thank you for bringing that up, because the reason I'm doing that is because the ads that are going to run, the commercial breaks, for example, are going to be about things that Addressing Gettysburg has to offer, like Little Ground Top, our Patreon channel, things like that. I think I'm going to keep two of the sponsors because I think that they're valuable to you as Getty's nerds. But all the rest of the sponsors, all the commercials are going to be for things that we directly generate revenue off of. So it'll be shorter commercial breaks too. But also, we're going to do them at 7 o'clock on those Tuesdays. And a way to entice the guides who have just come off of a long day of touring is to offer them dinner. So I will be buying dinner every other week for the cast and crew of the show. It's not really in the budget, but I have to do it. So so those super chats, that's actually part of the reason why I'm relegating reading comments to super chats, because I need to at least break even on those days. So that's the idea there. Hold on a second. I keep getting, well, anyway, coming to the end here. And there we are. All right, let me just go quickly through comments, see if there's anything. Sound like a great plan. I definitely think it was going to really help you grow. Then what benefits us patrons if the Ask a Guide is free? Everything else, Garrix. The Ask a Guides are always free. Didn't you see the post I said about that? I said, I'm thinking of doing this. Do the First Lieutenant's Mind. You're still going to get the recording sessions of all the Patreon shows. There's 4 of those a month. So you're going to get a lot of those. And then the Ask a Guides are going to go out because they're free episodes anyway. Jim, Matt, will you still be filming the winter lecture series? That's what I'm hoping. We'll find out what this meeting is about. Boo don't like that idea. Yeah, sorry, Barbara, I got to make a living. Peter says, oh, that complainer Ann from last week. Oh, that was fun, yes. Melissa, because Sims's questions so knowledgeable. What? Oh, 6 questions so knowledgeable. All patrons, just officer class. All patrons, it's going to be free on Patreon for AG Today. It's just I'm moving it over there. Putting it out in the ether on YouTube doesn't help. It hurts in my estimation. It's hurting the YouTube channel. So if I just put it for free over on Patreon, if you like it that much, you can go over on Patreon. And I don't even think you need to actually have a Patreon account. I'm not sure about that. But you can start an account and follow people for free. You don't need to follow people and pay them. I thought you were going to grow fast after the one drive where everyone from all over the globe came. Yeah, I did too. It got like 1,000 views, but then they adjusted it and it got like 500 views. The test should be written by guides. It is written by guides, but I think there's also Park Service people involved too. Matt, were there any questions on the test about Tom Berenger's beard? Yes, there were. Valiant says, the dying confession of Werner von Braun about the last card. Will they play it? Werner von Braun, Fairchild. Exactly. And Michael says, I think Berenger's beard settled down with a Lady Gaga hair extension. And they... All right, I got to get going, guys. You have yourselves a great day. I will talk to you tonight with Jason Martz.